Coming up, ninth inning comebacks highlight an exciting Thursday in baseball. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us every day to go over all of the action for you from yesterday across Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. We thank you, as always, for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The Twins and the Rays both lead their divisions, but the teams are headed in opposite directions right now. Tampa won its sixth game in a row while handing Minnesota their fifth straight loss. The Locked On hosts with both teams recap that matchup.
Yes, the Rays have done it again. They have swept yet another team. My name is Ulysses Zambrano, host of the Locked On Rays podcast. The Rays have swept the number one team in the AL Central, the Minnesota Twins, with a walk-off included. And today they resorted to Yonny Chirinos coming up from AAA, giving them a solid 5 2/3 of really good baseball. Yonny should be a mainstay, hopefully, in the rotation now. And now the Rays are gonna go head-to-head with the other juggernaut of the American League, the Texas Rangers, for a 3-game series. For this and much more about your Tampa Bay Rays, who are the best team in MLB, catch Locked On Rays on any other podcast platform, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Rays up.
Your Twins fall yet again, this time 4-2 at the Trop. It's a 3-game sweep at the hands of the Rays. And at 31 and 32, the Twins are in first place, but perilously so, and below 500 for the first time all season. Became just another one of those days right away. Jorge Polanco rips a ball off the umpire, ends up leaving the game with a hamstring issue. Twins don't get anything done in the first inning, and pretty much the rest of the day. Carlos Correa with a home run, goes 2 for 4, but a feeble grounder back to the pitcher in the ninth. Twins messed up a cutoff play in the pitch before Harold Ramirez homered, and also a throw on a pickoff that skips past Royce Lewis. In other words, Twins beat themselves yet again. Toronto up next. Looks like Sonny Gray and Yusei Kikuchi in the opener. And for today's stat, you won't see anywhere else. Bullpen ERA went ahead. The Twins are 3.23, which is 15th. When behind, 3.22, which is second lowest. Went ahead or tied 3.61, which is 18th, and ERA went tied 4.65, which is 21st. That pretty much tells the story. We'll see you tomorrow.
The Orioles waited until the 7th inning to score a run, but then they put up 6 in order to take down the Brewers. Our Locked On Orioles host looks at what turned the tables.
Sometimes the Orioles don't play well, and sometimes you are able to beat the Orioles, but you are certainly not able to sweep the Orioles. And the O's showed that again on Thursday with a 6-3 win over the Brewers. They avoid the sweep with a huge comeback. Listen, this offense looked dead and gone once again. Just nothing going through the first 6 innings. Then Ramon Urias hits the homer in the 7th. You're thinking, okay, at least they're not going to get shut out. And then the rally starts. Adell, then Santander, then the Gunnar homer. And the O's have the lead. Then they add on 2 more in the 9th. And all of a sudden, 6 runs in the final 3 innings. And the Orioles do not get swept. They still haven't gotten swept since Adley Rutschman was called up last year. They win it 6-3. And they go back home with a 3-3 road trip. Which, you know what? Things haven't looked great recently, but a 3-3 road trip is not too bad. And I'll recap it all coming up on Friday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
The Giants got within 3 outs of losing to the Rockies yesterday, but San Francisco scored 3 runs in the 9th to finish a sweep of their division rivals. Our Locked On hosts go over what happened at the end in Colorado.
The Giants come back from a significant deficit for the second game in a row against the Colorado Rockies, and they sweep the series. This is Ben Kaspick with the Locked On Giants podcast. Giants were down 4-1 after 1 inning today, but they stayed in the game. The bullpen did a great job. Alex Cobb even did a great job gutting it out after a rough first. But the bullpen 2 days in a row didn't allow a single run, and it kept the Giants in the game. And 2 days in a row, their offense late in the game, just with grinding at bats after they had a crazy grinding offensive game, 240 pitches that they made the Rockies throw in game 1 of the series. The last 2 games, they kind of grinded it out late and were able to come back. Today, 3 runs in the 9th inning. So just a great series for the Giants all the way around, sweeping the Rockies, coming home now and hopefully carrying that momentum and pushing further away from that 500 mark that they've been hovering around for the last season and a half. So anyway, I break this down with Locked On Rockies' Paul Holden for tomorrow's Locked On Giants, where it's your team every day.
Well, the bullies from the Bay are at it again as the San Francisco Giants come back for the second straight game and beat the Rockies. I'm Paul Holden from the Locked On Rockies podcast, bringing you all your Rockies talk, and what a frustrating, disappointing series for the Colorado Rockies. The San Francisco Giants continue to just dominate and bully the Colorado Rockies. That's really the best way to describe it. This team has the Rockies number and will continue to have the Rockies number until the Rockies can come up and back themselves up in situations. They had two opportunities where their starting pitchers who needed to be great were great, and the offense was kind of there and started off strong, but didn't do enough to come back in ball games and help them out. And this overworked bullpen is continuing to show its cracks and its issues. The Rockies are in deep trouble if they don't turn things around, especially against the division. How can they handle this? How can they navigate it? We'll see if they turn it around against the Padres, because those questions don't have solid answers.
Coming up, the Astros and Blue Jays fight for positioning in the wild card race. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB is brought to you by Birddogs. They are the most stylish and comfortable men's shorts out on the market. If you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB and enter promo code LockedOnMLB, you will get a free Yeti-style tumbler with your next order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off, we promise. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. The Astros and Blue Jays sat a game and a half apart in the AL wild card race going into Thursday. Our Locked On hosts tell us who came out on top after their matchup.
This is Eric Heisman with the Locked On Astros podcast. And yes, you're not going to win every game, but unfortunately, they dropped 3 in a row to the Toronto Blue Jays. This does have wild card implications because the season series now goes the Blue Jays' way, 4-3. And so if they are tied at the end of the season, the Blue Jays now hold the tiebreaker. Now, Alex Bregman got the Astros off, started great with a home run. Then you had another run scored to make it 2-0 early. Framber Valdez was cruising. And then a couple of errors and little oopsies in the 5th inning led to 3 runs. And then Astros offense couldn't get anything else. But to make matters worse, in the 3rd inning of the game, Yordan Alvarez left with what was later announced as right oblique injury. We talked about how long he could be potentially out on the Locked On.
The Angels took the first 2 games against the Cubs this week by coming back from early deficits, leaving LA with a shot at a sweep and Chicago with motivation to get revenge. Our Locked On hosts tell you how the series finale played out.
Thursday night was Joe Adell night at the Big A in Anaheim. Hey everybody, it's Mike Frisch, one half of Locked On Angels. The Angels sweep the Cubbies, and they cap off the sweep with a 3-1 victory on Thursday night. And they were led by Joe Adell, who was called up on Wednesday, didn't play, but he was there on Thursday, and he hit a massive home run, had 18 home runs in the minor leagues, and now has a major league home run this season, and crushed that ball. That ball had a family, Joe. Come on. Reed Detmers got his first win of the year. He was 0-5 coming into this game, went 5 2/3, struck out 8. And then the Angels, their bullpen, this rebuilt bullpen, was phenomenal. Chris Davinsky came in the 7th and looked great. Jose Soriano came in the 8th, looked fantastic. And then Carlos Estevez continues to shut down teams in the 9th inning, and the Angels find themselves 34-30, and they're going to welcome the Mariners on Friday night. And John and I are going to recap this game and the weekend series on Locked On Angels. We hope you'll join us.
After losing late in the first game of the doubleheader, the Yankees got revenge in the nightcap against the White Sox. Locked On Yankees goes over that 500 day for New York.
This is Stacey Gotsoulias of Locked On Yankees, and the Yankees split their doubleheader with the White Sox, losing Game 1 6-5 and winning Game 2 3-0. Now, the big story of the day, that 6-5 loss and Luis Severino's start. He had major issues with his fastball. He gave up 3 home runs, all on the fastball. The White Sox swung at 18 of those fastballs and hit every single one of them. There's a whiff on Baseball Savant, but technically it was a foul tip, so they were making a lot of contact with his fastball, and he was having a lot of trouble. Wasn't there a movie called Trouble with the Curve? It was Trouble with the Fastball today for Luis Severino, and the Yankees ended up losing that game. As I said, 6-5. Now, in the second game of the doubleheader, Randy Vasquez and the bullpen kept the White Sox off the board. So the Yankees salvaged that last game, but the big story, Luis Severino. So we will be talking about that on the next Locked On Yankees, so please tune in.
The Chicago White Sox split a doubleheader with the New York Yankees in New York. Hey, I'm Nick Morawski from Locked On White Sox. Game one was really the only thing you want to talk about as a Sox fan. Offense, 4 home runs. It was the first time ever that Yohan Moncada, Luis Robert Jr., and Eloy Jimenez all homered in the same game. Jake Berger also added in a home run. Lance Lynn was the game one starter. Not a very good outing at all. Thank goodness for that offense. Sox lost game 2, 3-0. Sox had more walks, 3, than hits, 2. Mike Clevenger, not horrible. He was good after 3, but then last few innings were rough for him. Just 0 offense for the Sox. White Sox are 3.5 games back in the AL Central. They come home for a weekend series against the Miami Marlins. For more, check out the Locked On White Sox podcast.
That's it for a full day of baseball on Thursday and this edition of Locked On Game to Game. We thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.